This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code DETROIT to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
Welcome in on a Monday to Detroit Sports Podcast, the Monday mashup. And for Spartan fans, it's a bit of a celebratory Monday. Not because Michigan lost. That's not why we're celebrating. I didn't even know that Michigan lost. Nobody even
Didn't move the needle for me.
It was just a game on a day. No, it's a celebratory Monday because Michigan State won 6 games.
Break out the hats.
I want to open with this because we are, of course, going to talk about Michigan and Ohio State, but I know that Michigan fans reflexively will hear it and be like, 2 Michigan State guys who are just bashing Michigan after a second consecutive worst loss in the history of the rivalry. This is just 2 Michigan State guys who are going to hate Michigan for no reason. So I want to open with Mark D'Antonio giving hats out that say program win on the back. This is the second time he's done this. We now have that confirmed.
Double confirmed.
One from Darian Harris on Twitter and one off the record. We have double confirmed that Mark D'Antonio gave hats to the 2012 Michigan State team that won their 6th game on the final game of the season.
So maybe we can win the Beat-Ups Bowl again.
Yeah, to get bowl eligible. And he's done it again. They're bowl eligible, and they get hats with a Spartan logo on the front that says program win on the back. Celebrate going to the Quick Lane Bowl.
I mean,
this is the state of the program.
What do you think the gift package is like at the Quick Lane Bowl?
There's a difference between giving a hat out for going 6-6 in 2012 when you haven't yet won the Big Ten title game, you haven't yet beaten Ohio State, you haven't yet gone to the Rose Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, won both games, you haven't yet gone to the college football playoff. 2012, well, similar in expectation with the top-ranked defense, and they were a top 25 team entering the year.
Coming off an appearance in a Big Ten championship game and a bowl game win against Georgia.
Sure. It similar in optics to start the season, but the program was legitimately in a different place.
Absolutely.
It had never been perceived as elite. It
Without
was
question.
just having a nice little run of 4-year success that they had never seen before.
Sure.
To give the hats out now, after we were perceived as elite.
Yeah, not even just like expectations preseason. Like during the season, after the first couple weeks, people still thought this team had a chance.
After putting 52 on Western Michigan and still having a top 5 defense in the country, the number 1 rush defense in the country, yeah, I would say I was a bit high on Michigan State. In fact, I remember coming in here and saying I was all in. I'd win the Big Ten or bust. When you put 52 on Western, I was like, look, I haven't seen this team put up 50 points in 6 years. Win the Big Ten or bust.
Sure.
So they went bust and lost 6 games, 5 of them in a row.
Expediently.
Made sure to do it as quickly as possible. They got boat raced by Michigan. They got boat raced by Ohio State. They got
Wisconsin.
Boat raced by Wisconsin. They got boat raced by Penn State, which almost hurt the most because that was a team that even when they were bad, they had learned to compete with and like haunt Penn State.
Penn State's always susceptible to that randomly. Just the random upset against a team that isn't that great but can put it together for one Saturday.
Like we had beaten them 2 or 3 straight times.
And they even beat them with Saquon. Like, yeah.
And to then lose all of these games consecutively, we're at 4-6 with Rutgers and Maryland lined up. Win them both and you're bowl eligible. Great. We go to Quick Lane, probably beat whatever sad sack MAC team we see in Ford Field. And
playing a MAC team in a bowl game should tell you enough about how your season went.
Correct. So we'll beat whatever they are, and then D'Antonio will get a 7-6 season and probably stick around because that just seems to be the direction of the program. Yeah, he's just going to, switch a couple offices around or something.
Be fine.
Loves Tressel. We know Tressel will be back. So now they're celebrating bowl eligibility with a hat, despite the fact that 4 years ago they were in the college football playoff.
Yep.
They're now celebrating bowl eligibility. Yeah, that's not okay.
No.
So before we get into bashing Michigan, I want to bash Michigan State because the state of the program to me now is worse than it was with John L. Smith. And it was bad with John L. Smith.
The end of John L. Smith was pretty low. Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me to say it's that bad, but it might be.
I've never heard of a team giving out a hat to celebrate bowl eligibility.
No, it's not something you typically do at all. Maybe in week 6, if you start 6-0 and you just want to give your team a hat for free. Say, hey guys, we're bowl eligible. Here's some hats. Let's get ready for next week. We're still undefeated. But not at the end of a season when you've already lost 6 games and you needed to win 1 to get back to 500. So you're now celebrating a 500 season and commemorating that with a hat? Why would I keep that hat?
To do that in the locker room with media present.
Don't do it.
Like media is present. If you're going to do it, don't let media know you're doing that.
No.
That gets out, it's going to be a disaster. So then Darian Harris takes to Twitter and he defends this. And I don't know how he defends this because I'm not even going to go in on how bad of a look that is. You should know how bad of a look that is. Giving out a hat for a 6-win season is pathetic.
Yeah.
For Darian Harris to then go on Twitter and say that he still has and cherishes his hat from his 6-6 season in 2012 and that without that program win, we wouldn't be on the high horse that we're on right now. No, winning 6 games in 2012 had nothing to do with 2013 and your quarterback who in 2012 was very bad and Andrew Maxwell got benched for Connor Cook, who then took the program to new heights. Yes. That's what happened. It didn't have anything to do with winning a 6th game in 2012. It had to do with getting a new coach, and you had Pat Narduzzi. Now you have an assistant nobody gives a shit about.
Multiple assistants, no one gives a shit
every
about.
Side of the ball. Yeah. Like special teams coaches, no thanks. Offensive assistants, no thanks. Brad Salem's the only one who might get another job. Jim Boylan will never get another job. Did I just say Jim Boylan? Jim Boylan might not get another job
Boylan
coaching
should
basketball.
Never get another job.
Jim Bollman will not get another job. Dave Warner will not get another job. Mark Staten will not get another job. These guys are not employable. No. That's the difference. 2012 and 2013, you had coordinators and assistants people cared about. Mm-hmm. Now
they came and got Harlan Barnett. They came and got Narduzzi.
Now you got nothing.
No, nobody's coming to get your guys.
Not ever.
No.
So you're celebrating 6 wins. The program's in a different spot, and it's flat out embarrassment. It's I thought what Michigan did on the field on Saturday was the most embarrassing thing a Michigan college football team could do on Saturday, and then D'Antonio gave out hats for beating Maryland.
Yeah. Really just had to one-up them.
I mean, I can't think of a more embarrassing place for the program. And you said it before we started recording that you're out. I've been out. I haven't watched a live Michigan State game in 4 weeks.
Oh, no. I watched the very end of Illinois, and that's the only one I've watched since Wisconsin. I went to Michigan, but that was it.
I was at a party for Michigan State, and I basically tuned the game out.
Yeah.
I didn't really watch it. I didn't really care.
It got to a 10-point game, and I'm like, well, they can't score 10 points, so this is over.
I didn't watch the Illinois game. I did not watch Rutgers. I did not watch Maryland.
Didn't turn either of those on.
I am not giving my Saturdays to this program anymore. And next year, if Mark D'Antonio is still the head coach, I won't tune into the spring game. I will not watch any of the first 6 weeks of football. I will not watch until the Michigan game, assuming that Michigan State's at least half decent enough to compete. Not sure that they are.
So, like,
granted, I'm not sure Michigan will be either, but we'll get to that.
They reported that it was the lowest announced attendance in 25 years. And they reported 50,000 people.
Yeah, I saw photos of that stadium. There were not 50,000 people.
50,000 means the lower bowl is relatively full. Like, it wasn't. And there was barely anybody in the top.
I would be shocked if there were 10,000 people in that building.
10,000 probably, but 20?
You're pushing it with 20,000.
I don't think so.
That is as empty as I think I have ever seen a football stadium in my life. I had a buddy at the game. He was in a suite, and he was sending me pictures. And the entire time, I was just laughing at him. I was like, dude, you couldn't have paid me to go to this game. I can't believe that you're there. It was we got free suite tickets. I would have lit him on fire. I would not have gone at all. And he's sending me pictures, and the entire stadium is just empty bleachers.
Yeah. It's like when the Pistons were telling people that 15,000 people were coming to their games. It's like, yo, it only seats 20,000, and that thing isn't a quarter full. 15,000 people aren't there. Like,
they're up in the concourse. That's what you
like,
don't understand.
I don't know if you're telling me that like you sold that many tickets, but I don't even think you did that.
You're trying to sell me that people were in the concourse at Spartan Stadium, checking out all the sights, all the concrete.
What a beautiful walk it is.
Yeah, you get to look at all these concrete support beams, and you get hot dogs for a nickel. Like, they charge $5 for a hot dog that they bought for a nickel. Like, literally, there's nothing good to do on the concourse at Spartan Stadium. It's one of, I love the school, one of the worst college football stadiums I've ever been to. There's nothing really redemptive about it.
I haven't been to a million of them, so I'm probably not qualified to say it's one of the worst, but I don't love it.
There's nothing special about it at all. There's not really any redemptive quality. It's kind of cool looking from the outside, I guess, with the new north entrance and the press box. But listen, I don't know that Michigan Stadium's anything to write home about either. I think
it's architecturally pleasing, at least the big house is.
Yeah, and it's also like famous, but there's nothing redemptive about Spartan Stadium to me. Like, you can't convince me that people were in the concourse.
Really big scoreboard. I mean, really big.
Huge. No, I think that I just want to get this out of the way because Michigan fans are going to go talk about your own school. Well, I just did. They're an absolute embarrassment. They're putrid, and they make me want to vomit. I have no desire to watch them until Mark D'Antonio's gone, unless, like you said, he starts next season 6-0, which would include a win over Michigan and Iowa and Miami and Northwestern.
Miami, though.
Yeah, I don't know. You beat Miami. And Miami's
they
nothing.
can beat Miami, and Miami's yeesh.
Miami stinks, but I don't know. You can beat them. Like, Michigan State's really, really
Miami.
bad.
Like, Miami is yeesh.
But yeah, no, we do have to talk about the more interesting college football story of the weekend because there's so much more to dissect from it. Michigan got embarrassed for the second straight season by their arch rival. 62-39 last year. 56-27 this year. The largest margin of victory in consecutive games in the history of the rivalry. Jim Harbaugh is now the only coach to start 0-5 in the history of the school against Ohio State. It's also increasing margin of victory every single year. 3 points in 2016, 11 in 2017, and then 24 last year, and
something like that. Yeah,
26 this year, 28 this year, whatever it is.
It could have been worse this year. I was surprised Ryan Day called off the dogs. He probably only did that because Fields had the knee. But if they would have put him out there for the last series, they'd marched it down and scored again.
When it was 48 and they were going for the extra point, I wondered if he was going to go for 2.
I mean, there was a part of me that was like, I was a little surprised when they didn't put Dobbins or Justin Fields back on the field for that last drive. Not that Master Teague is a slouch by any means, but like they brought in the backup, and I was like, wow, Ryan Day took his foot off the gas. He hasn't done that all year.
Also, Chris Olave dropped the touchdown. Yeah. So again, it could have been worse, much worse. And like Michigan made a ton of mistakes where it could have been better. Like, what was it, the 4th and 4? Like Harbaugh kicking the field goal.
Yeah,
from inside
why did you do that? Why did you do that? Donovan Peoples-Jones. If they call that a touchdown, it'd have been tough to overturn. Like, it looked like he might have they didn't, so it's over. It's no point in dwelling on whether or not a catch was a catch. But you gotta go for it. Like, you had a play. Like, he dropped the ball. You scored. But go for it.
And one of my friends is like, at some point you got to take the points. I'm like, I get that, but you can't buy a stop. And that's immediately out of halftime. J.K. Dobbins' first play from scrimmage is a 40-yard run. I'm like, that's why you can't kick the field goal.
We don't want to chase points, but you're chasing. Like, guess what? They're still running. They're not slowing down, so you're chasing.
And it's just, all of the decisions made by Harbaugh in that game were really perplexing.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of well,
he's a bad decision maker when they're on the run. Like, when they're chasing and when they're on the run, he does not manage the game well.
I'm seeing a lot of people saying Harbaugh fixed the offense this year, which, to his credit, it looked considerably better down the stretch.
I was definitely somewhat impressed with Josh Gaddis.
It's absolutely improved from where it was last year.
Sure.
It's improved as the year went on. I think Josh Gaddis has earned his chance to stay at Michigan.
Absolutely. When they throw it, they can do it well.
Even if a new coach comes in, I almost think just hold on to Gaddis because he's got a bit of a rhythm with this team.
Yeah, I still don't think Patterson is very good.
Yeah, I'm not sold, but hey, he's done.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're moving on. I keep looking at people saying it's on Don Brown now. You have to fix the defense, which, true. Anytime Don Brown goes up against a half-decent rushing attack, his scheme absolutely falls apart, and he gets rolled over. He got bombed by Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Penn State shelled him early, and you get bombed by Ohio State in consecutive years.
And Penn State was a passing attack. They're bombing it.
At this point, it's just a fact.
Yeah.
You no longer can defend Don Brown as a defensive coordinator. His schemes are not good enough to beat teams with equal or better talent. Yeah. They just
give him Devin Bush and Winovich and all those guys, and he can put together a pretty solid defense. But
I think he's a good guy. Yeah. I think he's a good motivator from what I've seen in the Amazon stuff. And
a lot easier to coach defense when Greg Madison's helping you.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot easier.
Bringing in his guys and his players, too. And I think it's like, he's a good dude, and he's done well in the past with the defenses that he's been given. He did well this year, turning them into, the number one unit going into this game?
Something like that.
But it's like, you're doing great against Indiana and Illinois. And
Indiana's backup quarterback.
Right, the Purdue's of the world. You do great against a lot of these teams that just flat
out... The Michigan State of the world this year.
Flat out aren't as talented as you. Notre Dame this year, not as talented as you. And
in a torrential downpour.
Right, in a game where... They couldn't even rely on Ian Book to do what Ian Book wants to do.
Couldn't even catch the snaps.
You look at, you've benefited from all these different situations, but in the biggest moments against the best teams, your defense sucks.
Yeah.
Period. So, you can't defend Don Brown anymore, and I get that. He's got to go. But at some point, why do you just let Harbaugh make change after change after change after change after change and hope it works? This is Michigan's new reality. You either have to lower your expectations and realize what you are with this guy, or get a new coach.
Yeah.
That's your new reality.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier. I think we said it months ago. You're going to end up like Oklahoma State, where you just have your old quarterback coaching you, and you might win 10 games every year. You probably won't win fewer than 8 any year.
Not going to beat your rival very often.
And you're not going to win 13 and go to the playoff. You're just not, because you're Oklahoma State.
You're Oklahoma State. You're TCU. There's not really a
TCU.
There's not really a Pac-12 connection, but you are
Auburn. Auburn
not,
wins every now and then.
I don't even know. Auburn's like an elite program,
exactly.
though. Auburn has found a way to beat Nick Saban 3 times under Gus Malzahn.
Backup quarterbacks 2 out of the 3.
But still, Jim Harbaugh can't find a way to beat Ohio State once, and it only backup quarterback. I think one of the 3 times.
Yeah. I was thinking Gene Chizik.
People keep talking about. The other thing I keep hearing is, what can you expect from Jim Harbaugh? Ohio State's on an all-time 5-year run. Well, one, you haven't beaten them really in 16 years, except for the one where Luke Fickell was the head coach, and what was Joe Bausmeyer? What was his name, the quarterback?
I think Braxton was playing quarterback by then, but he was 18 years old and had never played quarterback in college at that point.
And had a coordinator who didn't know what he was doing, and a head coach who knew he was an interim, and a sanctioned team that had lost half their play. I mean, and it took everything for Michigan to win that game at home.
Yep.
Under Brady Hoke, and it's that's a 6-7 Ohio State team. Mm-hmm. You want to write home about that? That's the only time you can beat them, and So it's not a 5-year run. It's a 16-year run.
You basically got spotted 10 points.
And it's a 5-year run for Harbaugh where it's like, yeah, they're on this incredible run, and they've been so good under Urban Meyer and now under Ryan Day. But here's the other side of that. Iowa's beaten them in this time. Mm-hmm. Kirk Ferentz has done that. Purdue's done that. James Franklin's done that. Mark D'Antonio did it 3 times. Yeah. 2 times, however many times. He beat Urban twice. Mm-hmm. I mean, where does it work for those guys? But Harbaugh gets the credit that, well, Ohio State's really good. Here's a newsflash. Ohio State's not going to stop being really good.
No, they haven't. And, except for that 1 year, they've been good every single year since Tressel. Since before Tressel. That's who they are. And they stay at an elite level and stay unbelievably, I don't know, they stay contending for a national championship every single year where you have fallen off.
It's now 2 consecutive years also where at any point in the season you were favored to win the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. And
coming into the season.
You didn't even go to the championship game.
Right.
You didn't even get to Indy. So it's
honestly, you haven't sniffed it. Since you lost to Wisconsin, nobody was even remotely giving you a chance.
You haven't been close.
No.
I mean, you lost to Wisconsin, and people, especially the optics of losing to Wisconsin immediately after the debacle that was the Army game, and then you lose to Penn State.
Yeah.
The season's
and
over.
Nobody was picking you against Penn State.
And the season's over.
Yeah.
You were a 7.5 point underdog in that game. Mm-hmm. Last year, you go into Columbus as a 3.5 point favorite and lose by 26. It's like, at some point, you just have to understand this isn't the guy who's going to get the job done.
Right.
So if your goal remains win the Big Ten, contend for the college football playoff, you need a new coach. If you want to switch your goal to win 10 games, even if it's completely hollow, win 9 regular season games, never win fewer than 8 games in a season, and maybe win a bowl game against a middling SEC team.
Maybe, because they haven't been winning bowl games against middling teams from the South.
You've beaten Florida.
No,
and
they didn't. They did once. They also lost to Florida.
That's the only Harbaugh bowl win. You beat Florida. It was a bad Florida team.
Jim McElwain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You then lost to Florida State, lost to South Carolina, and lost to Florida.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and again, I understand the thinking and the take of, what head coach are you going to get this better? And maybe you're right. But if you want to beat Michigan, go throw a ton of money at somebody, just like you did with Harbaugh. Because Harbaugh was the guy, right? When it was like, well, we got to fire Hoke. Okay, who are we going to get? There was one guy. There was one guy. It was Harbaugh. You paid whatever it took to get him. So who's the guy? Go pay whatever it takes to get him. If you're Michigan. And if you're not and you're content with being
Oklahoma State.
Exactly. Then don't. Then keep him and do what you're going to do. And it's going to cost you a lot of money because 10 wins costs a lot of money.
The other side of this isn't a decision for me to make, and it's not a question for me to answer. I'm not a Michigan fan.
Exactly.
I'm very consistent on these types of things, though.
I don't care who you get.
With my team, with my school, with my teams, I do not abide lowering my expectations.
No.
I don't.
Why would I?
When Tom Brady retires, if Bill Belichick remains employed, I'm not going to lower my expectations. They're going to stay right where they are.
That's right.
Win the AFC, go to the Super Bowl. That's the expectation. When Bill Belichick leaves and Tom Brady leaves, obviously I understand things are going to be different than they have been. But that's the expectation. I'm not going to suddenly, if both of them are still there and they win 7 and go 7-9, I'm not going to go, oh, well, it was going to happen at some point. No, you have to have that expectation.
There can only be, that should be the way it is for every team that experiences a period of greatness. No matter how prolonged or short it is, if you have that, let's call it at least 3 years to however long, you're expected to be able to continue that with consistency unless you have some kind of freak situation like a Golden State this year. Every year, you're supposed to be able to continue that.
It's especially applicable for college sports because the variance in pro sports is so insane that you can't expect every single season in pro sports to be, we're going to win a title.
Yeah, there's no salary cap in college sports.
But in college athletics, you can go get your recruits. You can get your guys.
Keep churning them out.
Alabama, the expectation from now until the end of time, every single season, win the SEC, and compete for a national championship.
And win the recruiting battle.
Auburn, same deal.
Yeah.
Like USC, it's going to be the expectation. That's why they've shuffled through 16 coaches in 10 years. Like all of these schools, that is what the expectation is. So it's insane to me that for whatever reason at Michigan, it's okay that he can't beat Ohio State, that he can't go to Indy, that he can't win the Big Ten, that he can't contend for the college football playoff. It's fine because they're making a lot of money and he's the former quarterback. Like, I don't get what the disconnect is for this school compared to every other school. Michigan State had a run of 8, 9 years, 10 years of being excellent. Mm-hmm. And they're now not. I'm not one of those freak, stupid loser Michigan State fans that's going to sit here and go, well, don't you remember how bad it was before John L. Smith? We just have to understand that there's going to be bad years. That's not how this works. I don't abide lowered expectations.
No.
If you can't do the job that you're here to do, goodbye.
Am I supposed to think, like, quick parallel, and I can't believe I'm going to make this reference here, but am I supposed to think Jeff Blashill is just offered a pass because he can't get the Wings going? Because they're like, no, you're the Red Wings.
Do something.
Make me like hockey again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing for Michigan State. And I understand that Michigan State is not Michigan. You're not going to go out and throw a pile at somebody.
But that's why it's even worse for Michigan, because you're Michigan.
You can go out and throw a pile at somebody.
So, I feel like I need to grab Ward Manuel by the shoulders and shake him and be like, dude, like, I'm not just here to shit on you. You're Michigan, and I don't think you understand that.
Like, call Stephen Ross, ask for a check, and let's get this thing rolling. If I'm a Michigan fan, what else am I saying? Because if you're a Michigan State fan, like, who are we going to call? Magic Johnson? Dan Gilbert? Like, it ain't going to happen. They're not coughing up those checks. They don't care about the football program that much. Like, Stephen Ross or whoever else of the Michigan boosters that have all this money, if you care about your football program, let's see it.
And it's a really important thing to understand because that's how universities make their money. It's the number one advertising tool you have. You want donors giving you money, have a good football team. Yeah. You want to entice kids to come to your school, have a good football team. Like, that's the number one advertising tool that you have.
If you're Michigan, realize that you're a football school for a minute. Because Michigan State fully accepts that they're a basketball school.
Yeah,
everybody knows it. We get it. We spend more money on Izzo than Antonio for a reason. But Juwan Howard ain't making anywhere near close to what Harbaugh's getting. So act like a football school.
It's just like, and I get, if you want, again, I'm not a fan. So if you're a fan of Michigan and you decide that you're okay with 10 wins and an empty trophy case, that's your business. Have fun being Oklahoma State. Harbaugh's doing great. If that's what you choose to believe that Michigan is, Harbaugh's doing great. I don't abide that. I've grown up hearing that Michigan is the winningest football program in college football history. Yeah. I've punched holes in that. But again, that's what you say you are. 11 national titles. That's what you say you are.
Yeah.
So at some point, whether or not I agree with the validity of all of that.
No, I mean, far be it for me to make another hockey reference, but Montreal won a bunch of titles when there were 6 teams playing. Like,
exactly. Like,
you beat whatever team you always say, the Little Sisters of the Poor.
I'm trying to avoid just shitting on them because this is the image that you project, and it's why everyone hates you. Understand that. This is the image that you project.
For sure.
We are elite. We have 11 national titles. We're the winningest college football program in college football history. We are the leaders and the best and the leaders of the West. And that's why, this is why everybody hates you. Because you say all of these things and then you go and shit your bed sheets every single year when you play Ohio State or when you play Wisconsin or when you go to a bowl game or when you have a chance to play the Rose Bowl. You shit your sheets every time. So it's like, at some point, you either need to be what you pretend to be and what you embody and say, Harbaugh, dude, this isn't good enough. Goodbye.
Right.
Or stop saying you're the leaders and the best. Stop saying that you have 11 national titles. Stop calling yourself the winningest college football program ever. And start accepting that the reality of Michigan football since 1948 is one outlier where you won half of a national title and 70 years where you haven't done anything. The greatest coach in school history never won a national championship. Like, either understand that this is who you are and you're Oklahoma State and you're moving the goalposts back. You're not going to beat Ohio State. You're not going to contend on a national stage. You're not going to win the Big Ten. Or fire Jim Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. Those are your options.
Yeah, I mean, they can try and roll it over and be like, oh, we'll go for it. Next year's the year. But you said that like 3 years in a row now. Like, at what point does it get to be,
It's been if not now, when for
Exactly.
2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And especially this year. I mean, especially this year coming in, it was if not now when. Louder than it had ever been. And at some point, you do have to ask yourself, if he can't do it now, when it's if not now when, then again, when? Like, it's a simple question. I'll just keep restating it. He's not doing it now. Do you think he will do it next year? Are you going to wait for somebody to steal Ryan Day away from Ohio State and say, oh, well, he'll beat this guy. He's not Urban.
And I got to tell you,
Because he didn't come close to Ryan Day. He got
do
smoked.
it? Can he do it next year when Shea Patterson is no longer there, when Nico Collins and DPJ
Justin Fields ain't going nowhere.
are no longer there? Like, Justin Fields is staying at Ohio State. Ryan Day is staying at Ohio.
Ryan Lewerke's leaving, so it's good.
Do you trust Jim Harbaugh to be the guy that next year puts it together with all new guys? Or do you want to just cut your losses and go throw $4 million at, I don't know, throw $4 million at Mark Rule and then throw $1 million at Joe Brady to come be his OC?
You might just want to cut the middleman out, and Matt Rule is kind of falling off for me. I don't know. Again, you're
But
Michigan, so you could throw
the
a bag
point
at
is,
somebody, right?
Just go throw money at someone
Right.
and then throw a bag at Joe Brady to be their OC.
Right. I mean, why not? Like, why not? Or just like
I don't
want to cut away Gaddis because I was impressed this week. Like,
That
there
is
were
the
things
other-
that I'm like, oh, he did some things that were okay, but nobody, like, you're gonna have to. Did they play Minnesota next year? Like, they didn't even have to play Minnesota because I think they're gonna play them every other year because it's the Brown Jug.
So Michigan, I've looked at Michigan State's schedule for 2020, and I've looked at Michigan's, and they're both very difficult.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so you look
it's not going to get easy.
You look at Michigan's football schedule next year. You kick off the season in Seattle at Washington. That's a tough fucking start.
I mean, that's like Eason's coming back, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that's just-
tough
oof.
start. Then you get Ball State easy, Arkansas State very easy,
Why do they play those games? God, I hate
but at least they put Washington on the schedule.
Yeah,
to,
I mean, I'll
do
give them credit for
something.
that.
And it's on the road.
Yep.
Then you get Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan State, at Minnesota, all in a row.
If you win 2 of those games, that's good, but it's not good if you're Michigan, right? Like, anybody who has that 4-game stretch, if you come out of it 2-2 at any other program, you're like, hey, we held our own. But you're Michigan, right? So you're going to want to win all 4 of those games.
My whole point is just be Michigan. If you're going to be the cocky, arrogant leaders in the best, that's fine. But back it up. Because you haven't been able to back it up in 15 years. So I don't want to hear about leaders in the best anymore unless you choose to nut up and fire your coach.
At
That's
the
it.
very least, there needs to be a serious conversation about doing it. It can't just be a blanket statement of we're not firing him, he's coming back. There at least needs to be some kind of sit down with Ward Manuel and whoever that brain trust is to say, are we doing this? Because like you just mentioned that schedule, go to Seattle, play, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan State, and Penn State in a 4-week span. So that's 5 of your first 7 games against teams that are all probably, if Michigan State is good, depending on who their coach is, will be tough games. You come out of that thing 5-2 with the rest of your season in front of you, or 4-3 with the rest of your season in front of you, you might have to fire Jim Harbaugh right then and there, especially if a couple of those losses are embarrassing. And do you really want to do that to your guy, your beloved former quarterback, your beloved savior of the program? You're going to cut him loose after 7 games? Or are you just going to do it now when he's not as embarrassed as being kicked out onto State Street out of Schembechler Hall after 7 games?
And I'll tell you the other side of things too is and this is how I'll seg ourselves into the NFL. There are enough NFL coaches who are going to lose their jobs this offseason that you could probably right now have a mutual parting of the ways.
And like, there are enough ones out there that you could go get one that isn't coaching, or one that's about to get fired. Like, go get an NFL guy.
My point, like, Jim Harbaugh can take an NFL job
Right,
and
exactly.
be like, yeah, Michigan can then release a statement. We have mutually agreed to part ways. You don't have to say we fired him. You don't have to say you don't have to kick him out on his ass on State Street. Like you said, you can just say, now, Don Brown needs to have a bullet put in him. Don Brown needs to be thrown in the Huron River. Don Brown deserves absolute hell.
Viking funeral.
That guy needs to be fired, and it needs to be made clear that he was fired. Harbaugh hasn't been bad enough for me to go, you need to drag him in a press release. Harbaugh, you can go, we've mutually decided to part ways. And with the number of NFL coaches who have either already been fired or will be fired, I think now is the perfect time.
I mean, I'd hate to talk about another man's job, especially if I don't know if you saw Countdown this morning, and I certainly didn't watch Countdown, but I saw the clip of Rex Ryan crying over the story about Anthony Lynn, and I feel bad to talk about his job, but Anthony Lynn's probably going to get fired. Like, all credit to him for opening that school in Tanzania. That's great. Like, really great stuff, but he's probably going to get fired, and he's going to get fired from a team in Southern California. So naturally, the first name that's coming up for that job after a 10-win season, if he wins a bowl game, is probably going to be Jim Harbaugh.
Imagine Jim Harbaugh and Urban Meyer having lunch in Southern California while Urban Meyer's coaching the Trojans.
But it's going to be
Jim
like,
Harbaugh's coaching the Chargers.
Think about it. Like, hey, Jim, Phillip Rivers is gone. Pick your quarterback. Come down to L.A. Coach, we got a brand new stadium, beautiful facility in Costa Mesa.
Time of taping, the Chargers are losing to the Broncos. Yeah. So this is actually a situation, too, where the Chargers might have a pick where they'll fall into Tua territory. And it's like you're going to have the option to get Tua or Justin Herbert or whoever else Harbaugh chooses. And that is something that
Jalen Hurts, whoever.
That's an opportunity. I mean, the R words, if they want to hire him, there are so many teams out there where it's like you're going to fire your coach. The only one I know for sure isn't going to look that way is the Cowboys, because Lincoln Riley is going to be coaching the Dallas Cowboys.
I look at the Chargers and I say that's a defense that he could go. Like, Derwin James is going to come back next year. They're going to be a better defense. They've got phenomenal young ends. He doesn't have to worry about that defense. He could probably hire whoever he wants to be the D coordinator. It's not hard to get somebody to come take a job in LA. Yep. And then you can build your offense the way you want. You can not re-sign Melvin Gordon if you don't want to, or you can re-sign Melvin Gordon. You can get your quarterback. You can trade Phillip Rivers for picks. You can do a lot of things. And that's an appealing job to someone like Jim Harbaugh, who could say, okay, this didn't work. I'm walking away. I'm leaving you with a 10-win season. That's an easy thing to do.
10-win season and a top 10 recruiting class.
Yeah.
Have fun. Whoever the next guy is, enjoy it. This is on a silver platter.
That's not the worst way to walk away. It's certainly better than being fired 7 games in.
Actually, it's probably the most graceful time for him to do it is just to say, we haven't been able to get this done. I'm going to do other things.
Like, I'm not a college coach. Like, just say this. I tried hard. It didn't work. They're going to be mad for a second, but it sort of is what it is.
Lord, Pat Mahomes stinks.
Oh man, well, they're up 24-0. But after 5 years of this, and I couldn't even get us to Indy. Maybe it's time to be done. Like, maybe you just have to look at it and say, man, I couldn't even get us to Indy. And what? This is year 5 or year 4?
5.
5. Yeah, I couldn't get it done. I couldn't even get us there. I couldn't beat Ohio State, and I couldn't get it done. I'll go coach the Chargers. Right? Like, it's a logical. That would be probably a guy they would look at. I can't think of a whole lot of names coming before that for the Chargers.
It seems like the most graceful time for him to do it. I want to touch one more on college football because I brought up Lincoln Riley and it made me think of something with Oklahoma, and then I want to transition into the rest of the NFL. We have a blanket rule this week that we're not discussing Detroit sports because there's nothing good to discuss. There are a lot of good sports outside of Detroit. So if you want Lions talk, get it elsewhere. Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and tell you everybody should be fired for the 3rd week in a row. It's just not going to happen. The college thing I wanted to touch on, I'm completely out on playoff expansion. There are only 3 teams good enough to win the national title again this year. Like, whoever fits in at the 4th, Utah or Oklahoma, whichever team it is, now that Alabama's gone, they're not good enough. I've seen enough, even Georgia. I've seen enough out of Jake Fromm this year. Like, you can't score in a whorehouse when you play anyone decent.
What's the nightmare, though? Like,
Georgia beats LSU.
No, but I mean, even that to me is not the nightmare. The nightmare is Georgia loses to LSU, Oklahoma loses their championship game, and Utah loses their championship game. Who the hell is that 4th team?
Baylor. Gross, right? Gross, right?
It just sounds so bad. Oh,
it's either Baylor or, like, Wisconsin if they beat Ohio State.
It's a 1-loss Baylor?
Ugh. Gross, right?
Oh, that's gross.
That'd be Big 12 champion Baylor.
That's disgusting. I don't want that at all. Oh, that's gross.
And that's from Mark Rule.
What will LSU and or Ohio State do to Baylor? I mean, a merciful bloodbath that would be.
It would qualify as a mercy killing. It would qualify as a mercy killing.
Oh, that is.
See, this is why I don't need expansion. I don't need 8 teams. I don't need to see
a nightmare for them.
Terrible football. I just don't. I don't need it. I much prefer getting Alabama and Oklahoma playing in the Cotton Bowl and having a game that's good.
Fun to watch. I'll bet on that game.
Yeah, hell yeah. I much prefer that to seeing Oklahoma or Baylor or Utah get dismantled by one of the two best teams in the country. Much prefer that. And that's kind of where I'm at, especially this year, because I've seen enough out of Jake Fromm. I've seen enough out of Georgia's offense. He can't score in a whorehouse. I've seen enough out of Oklahoma. Since losing to Kansas State, they do nothing but QB power. I think Jalen Hurts stinks, and Lincoln Riley knows it. Like, I think the magic wore off there, and they're just like,
I wouldn't
hey,
know it stinks. He's a really good college quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be anything in the NFL, but like
they won't let him throw the ball anymore.
his numbers are still pretty damn good.
But they won't let him throw. He's throwing like 4 pass attempts a game.
But
it's just
when I
QB
think
power.
stinks, I think Brian Lewerke. Like, I don't think Jalen Hurts.
That's fair. It's just, as good quarterbacks go,
Right.
Jalen Hurts is probably not
He's
the
the
best.
lower rung of good quarterbacks.
Because at the beginning of the year, remember the conversation was he's better than
gonna run
Baker
away with
Mayfield
Heisman. Yeah.
and he's better than Kyler Murray. And now I'm like, I haven't seen him throw a pass 20 yards in like 3 months.
Right.
I don't need to worry about this kid anymore.
Right.
All they're doing is running him up the middle. Baylor, I know what Baylor is. They're not going to win anything. Utah, I think, is physical, and I think they're probably the best of the bunch, but I think you still lose by 3 scores in a semifinal game.
Yeah.
I don't need 8 teams. 4 teams is plenty.
4 is definitely enough.
And the other side of this is Ohio State's going to win the national title. I've accepted it. I understand it. I love LSU. I've adopted them this season, but Ohio State's going to win the national championship.
It's maybe the only reason that I want LSU to lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game is to have Ohio State play LSU in the first game so Joe Burrow can play against Ohio State, and then Ohio State win, and Justin Fields get to play against Georgia in the next game. Like, that would be amazing. Georgia beats Clemson, and then you get, like, everyone should transfer so we can have revenge games in college football. It's so much more fun.
I actually agree with the transfer aspect. Yeah. I think that Izzo's getting fucked by the eligibility rules
he is.
right now.
He is.
I think if you transfer and it's not just for I want to live someplace else, if it's like I'm not going to get playing time or my coach is different,
You should always be able to play if the coach changes. Always.
Yeah. If somebody who didn't recruit you is now your head coach, you should be able to move.
I agree with you, but not even for that. If a coach can leave and go coach somewhere else the next year, a player should be able to do that too. It's fine if you say, okay, you want to take another job? You got to take a year off. You can't coach a game there the next year, and then you can coach. Then it's fine. Then it's even.
Yep.
But if a coach can leave and go coach somewhere else, a player has to be able to do that too. That's not fair.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, boy, revenge games in college football. Another pass interference flag overturned. What is going on today? It's a million times this has happened. All right, into the NFL. Just adjusting into the NFL.
Slowly wading into the waters.
Thanksgiving games were terrible.
Yeah.
Is Buffalo good
The
now?
last one was okay. The onside kicks at the end.
Listen,
It's spicy.
No, I bet that game, and that was not fun at all.
No, I believe you.
That was
I did
terrible.
not bet that game.
I had Saints laying 8.5. That was horrifying.
I did not bet the game, so I was very excited.
I was sitting there. I kept thinking I was going to throw up. It was absolute terror.
I mean,
for
the whole
60
talk
minutes.
all years that the onside kicks are impossible now. They've essentially taken them out of the game.
They convert 3 in a row.
Yeah.
I got home and it was on Thanksgiving, so we'd gotten home from Thanksgiving dinner, and I said to my wife, I just want to watch this until I'm sure the Saints are going to cover. They're up 14 right now. If they get up 21, there'll be no problem. So they go up 17, and I'm like, if Atlanta scores, I'm not sure. Then I have to sweat the shit out of 3 consecutive onside kicks.
Never seen anything like it, really.
It was unreal. It was a really good game, but if you bet on that, it was the most anxiety-triggering game. So, onside kick, recovered, reversed for a penalty, following onside kick, recovered. Then they convert a 4th down.
Brilliant coaching to kick the field goal first.
Thank God. I think Dan Quinn had the under or something. I don't know what he was thinking there, but whatever. And then, so they kick the field goal, and I'm like, phew, I'm safe. They're not going to convert another onside kick. They convert another onside kick, and then they convert another 4th down. Thank God Matt Ryan took a sack, I think, and just saved me. But holy hell, that game, dude, that was one of the worst sweats of my entire life.
They did it without Julio, too. No Julio on that one.
The NFL today has been weird. Like, The Redskins beat the Panthers.
Yeah.
The Bengals. I
won a game.
I picked this game because I had a feeling if the Bengals were going to win one, it was going to be after Washington won a second game. They put Andy Dalton back in. They didn't want to be the Browns, and they didn't want to be the Lions. So they won today against the Jets, who their quarterback was getting wasted in a New York City bar.
More time in your playbook.
Finally
Stop
winning
time
a game.
making out with chicks.
Yeah, their mono-infested quarterback was busy getting bombed at a nightclub in New York because he won one NFL game.
I mean, it is only in New York where you could get the headline, Sam Darnold is seen at a club getting wasted and making out with a chick. Like, honest, that's a headline. Really? 23-year-old millionaire goes out after win. Like, no shit.
That's a James Harden headline. That's James Harden is spotted at an Atlanta strip club.
Insert city here strip club.
That is a James Harden. James Harden dropped 62 points. Found asleep in an Atlanta strip club. That's an NBA headline.
James Harden, quick NBA talk, dropping 60 and looking at Mike D'Antonio like, why are you taking me out of this game when they were up by 40 is bonkers. Like, no shit he's taking you out. He left you in this long just so you could get 60.
I loved him looking at the scoreboard and seeing he was 2 points off his career high, and he's like, what the fuck, dude?
You are up by 47 points right now, James Harden.
Sticking with the NBA for a minute, and then we'll switch to the NFL for a minute, and then we'll switch to the NBA. We got to talk about Carson Wentz again.
I've never been a Carson Wentz guy. Like, from the very beginning, I'm like, if you surround him with really good stuff and tell him to throw it 5 yards on a crossing or out to a wide open receiver, and then every now and then throw a 50-yard deep ball, sure, he can do that. But if you don't put everything around him, he's just a dude who played high school football in North Dakota and then played college football also in North Dakota.
I immediately thought of you on the first touchdown pass of the game, which was the leak for Miles Sanders, and he just threw a little check down.
Yep.
And I was like, that's exactly what Kevin said he is. It's just he throws check downs, and he's just bad.
He's not good.
I'm really starting to think, and I made it jokingly last week, but they paid North Dakota Jake Delhomme.
Yeah.
They really paid.
You could say MAGA Jake Delhomme. It's fine.
They really paid MAGA Jake Delhomme, Jimmy Garoppolo money to go. I think they're going to be 7-9, and that might be being generous this year. And they were odds-on favorites to win the NFC.
Yeah.
Like, Doug Peterson might lose his job.
They could still get in the playoffs because that division is so damn bad.
Doug Peterson might get fired 2 years after winning a Super Bowl.
Doug Peterson might win the division and get fired.
It's incredible. That division sucks ass.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
I can't. And then so the other NFL story that it didn't shock me. I shouldn't say shocked me, but it was funny to me was the Bills beating the Cowboys on Thanksgiving and Jerry Jones giving the press conference. He's always giving passive aggressive press conferences every year about Jason Garrett.
He was waiting for them in the locker room. He went into the locker room before them.
Every year, they lose a game, and he's like, this is unacceptable what they're doing, but Jason Garrett's my guy. And so you know it's going to happen this year. Last week, he offered the most passive-aggressive, really just aggressive press conference he's ever had, where he said, we're way too talented for me to be this frustrated. This doesn't make sense. And it was basically, I'm going to fire Jason Garrett. And then they asked him again, are you going to fire Jason Garrett? He said, no, I'm sticking by Jason Garrett. Then they asked him again, are you going to fire Jason Garrett? Not in season. So, yes, Jason Garrett, you are going to be fired. Just wait until January.
Again, that division is so awful that Jason Garrett could win it and lose his job. But I started to think when I saw the statement come out before the game on Thursday that they were sticking with him and he was coming. Like, all I could think was Jerry Jones did so poorly as an owner-coach relationship, driving away good coaches, really great coaches like Bill Parcells and Jimmy Johnson, and he drove them away, like didn't want them anymore, that he had to hang on to this glorified dunce for this long just to make it look like he's a great guy to work for, when everybody in the world knows no coach should want to go coach under Jerry Jones. But now he can sit there and say, look at how long I let this guy, look at how well I treated this guy. Who wouldn't want to come work for me? He had to change that narrative. So he has stuck with this guy this long just to change the narrative that he's not a complete jackass owning a football team. When in reality, yeah, he's a complete jackass that owns a football team.
So the last NFL thing I want to comment on, and I want to say this carefully because Lamar Jackson has been so good that I understand why people are anointing him, but Pat Mahomes should be a case study in why we don't do this, because the fall off from last year, and you remember early in the year when he was lighting up the stat board,
throwing no lookers.
Yeah, and people were like, "Oh, where's that regression that you
into
said
the fourth
was going to
row?
happen?"
He threw no lookers into the fourth row, I should say.
It's unfortunate that he got hurt, but it's
Yes,
also like
it's also a reality of the game he plays.
Yeah, and it's where's that regression that you said was going to happen for Pat Mahomes? Okay, well now it's week 13, and there's a lot of regression for Pat Mahomes. So with Lamar, I understand that the discourse has gotten to a point where we have to discuss him as the best quarterback in the NFL right now today. Let's calm it down and not call him the future GOAT like we did for Mahomes.
And for Kaepernick and for Cam Newton.
Because these things end very quickly. And when they do, it's ugly. So I would like Lamar to be good for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm. I still think Pat Mahomes is phenomenal, but just not the greatest quarterback of all time, like everyone said last year when he threw 50 touchdown passes.
All right. There's no good way to seg into it, but let's just get into the NBA. The storylines have been good. Like James Harden dropping 60 points on 24 shots and 23 free throws, and everybody's losing their mind trying to discredit it because of the free throws. Right. Like, that's the part you should discredit. It happened against the worst defensive team I've really ever seen.
The Pistons beat the Hawks.
It's an awful defensive team, but people have the wrong side of this where they're like, he did it with 23 free throws. It shouldn't even count. No. Kobe's 63 was better. Who cares?
It shouldn't count because he's playing a starting five with an average age of like 21.
My question is, why can't we just let 60-point performances be cool?
Yeah, they are.
Why do we have to rip every 60-point performance down?
When you look at a stat line, even if you didn't see the game and you look at a stat line and you see a 60, you're like, damn, like that doesn't happen a whole lot. Hardly ever. And he makes it look routine.
He's done it 4 times.
Yeah, he just does it all the time.
That's insane.
It's just a thing he does on a casual Saturday night.
And the other nights, he's doing like 40 points, but it's a triple-double. So, like, is he averaging 40 points now? Has he cracked that threshold?
I think it's 38 point something, but I'll check it.
Because it was, like, last week it was 39.6 or something, and I was like, just let it be 40. They should just round it up to 40.0, because that's insane.
I mean, he 38.9.
Here's the thing with Harden. We're going to look at this guy's stats 20 years from now and go, he might be the greatest player who ever played, but he never gets a ring, so nobody's going to give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, I do think if they're going to win a ring, it's right now. Like, you got to do it right now, because as he gets older and he's unable to do this, the defensive inefficiency will show more and more and more.
Yeah.
And as he's able to, or as he's unable to navigate double teams and constant switches that he will get as he gets older and slower, he's not the lightest guy in the world. He's a bouncier athlete than people realize because they see a bigger guy and think he doesn't get up, but he is a bouncier athlete than people realize. He has that old man's game where he can put his big ass into you and go down in the Mark Jackson you on the post. So he might like age gracefully into his mid 30s, right. But there's a point where it's going to fall off, and it's going to fall off hard. So I think right now, and when he's aging gracefully into his mid 30s, they're not going to be a title contender. He's just going to get numbers every night.
He's also going to have to tone down how many fouls he draws as he gets older, because he's not going to be able to play as physically as he likes to play.
That's not even
right
as
now.
He gets older. You've seen it the last 3 years, going back to the San Antonio series before they even got Chris Paul. It takes a toll on him come May. Like, he takes a playoff level beating in the regular season.
Yeah.
And then when the playoffs come, he's taken a beating that he's just not able to withstand for 2 series.
That's where people have been talking about Trae Young in the same light, because he's been so electric as a scorer. And they're like, if he can just double the free throw numbers, he really might approach Harden territory. He's not physical enough.
No.
He can't do it.
Like, guys who are that size have to play like it. Everything comes back to this guy for me, just because I love him so much. But if you are that size and you want to stay skinny because you like, oh, I like how bouncy I am, I don't want to put the weight on, it slows me down, I'm not as shifty, you got to play like Lou Will. You got to play on an angle, you got to play crooked, or you're not going to make it. And even Lou Will tore an ACL at one point in his career. Like, you have to play like that.
Are you saying you just got to sit on the bench for 5 minutes and get a feel for the game and then decide you're going to play the next 35 minutes?
You'll have a long career doing that, but you only make $8 million a year. But you know what? 2011 and 12 and 2012-13 when Lou Will and Drew Holiday were a backcourt in Philly and they had Iguodala on the wing and a young Nick Vucevic, that was a spicy team, and he still played the same way for 30-plus minutes a night as a starter. If you play like that, you can make it if you're that size.
It is kind of the thing I want to be hesitant with for when it comes to Trae Young. And like even Harden, who's a little bigger, he's packed on the pound, but it does take that toll on him.
Sure.
It's like you can't just ask Trae Young to become physical. It'll kill him.
Absolutely.
And like
you can't even ask him to be physical on defense.
It's the thing that I've always held against Kyrie because he's like scared to go through contact, but he really can't afford to.
Oh, he gets hurt every year. He gets hurt every year.
He can't go through contact.
Right.
It's hard to draw free throws. That's why I hate when people look at Harden's numbers and they go, well, he got to the free throw line 30 times. Yeah, but it's not like every single one of these is the leg kick at the 3-point line. He's going through contact all the time.
Kyrie is a great comp for Trae Young. Great because, but the difference is once Trae Young gets to year 4, LeBron ain't coming to make him a playoff hero.
Yeah.
Like, if Kyrie doesn't get LeBron back, like, he's just a guy who's been putting up numbers on bad teams for a long time. Like, he goes to Boston, they put things around him, they make that team good. I'm not going to say he was the reason that team was good. I know they won, 60 games the year before, 58, whatever it was. He obviously had a big hand in that, but that was the best I think anybody's ever seen him play.
Yeah.
Any other time, he's just a dude, but even right now, like, he's not playing, but before he got hurt, he's just putting up numbers on a bad team. That's what he does. That's who he is. And he goes to the basket and finishes, and that's why he gets hurt. Trae Young doesn't do it as much. He'll shoot from 40.
It is kind of, not to go too much into Kyrie, but if Kevin Durant comes back and Kevin Durant only offers 65% of Kevin Durant, which is probably on the low end, but
I hope it's more.
If I'm really cautious about it coming back from the Achilles.
Oh, year 1?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. 65 is what you're hoping for.
If you're getting 65%, again, you're going to be Kyrie Irving putting up numbers on like a 6-seed team.
I mean, you remember, like, they drafted Deion Waiters to play in the backcourt next to him. It was supposed to be unbelievable, the first pick and the fourth pick, and you had Thompson the year before, who was the fourth pick, and you've got this young core. They were trash.
They were terrible.
They were awful. They couldn't figure it out. And Deion Waiters, to his credit, at one point in his career, which made him $50 million because he did it for half a season, he figured it out. So there's a good player in there. There was a good player in Kyrie. Kyrie Irving is a phenomenal basketball player. He's just a hollow basketball player.
I guess this is going to be the theme of our NBA talk today because we were talking about it before the show, before we started recording. Guys who are really good at basketball but don't contribute to you being a winning team. Kyrie is one of those guys.
Absolutely. Like, if I can't stress it enough, they brought LeBron and Kevin Love in. Like, that's enormous. That's such a huge part of Kyrie Irving's career. If those guys don't come to help him and he never gets out of Cleveland, I mean, he'd be rich as hell and he'd still be selling shoes and making all-star teams, right. But they would be bottom of the barrel playoffs at best, and he'd have Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Bennett, and whoever else with him right now. That's who'd be on that team.
Anthony Bennett might not be on that team, but Andrew Wiggins would be.
But that's who would be there. Like, they completely reshaped that. It wasn't just LeBron. When they brought in LeBron, they started trading for J.R. Smith.
Yeah,
and Iman and all these guys. Yeah. Like, they didn't have that around Kyrie.
I mean, they put, Richard Jefferson on the floor.
All those kind of
Channing
guys.
Frye. They went and got leaders, guys who knew what it took.
Mozgov was great for them when they won a title.
Yeah, they went and got guys who knew what it meant to go through the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And, like, when Kyrie was with the Celtics, it was you have this incredible young core who figured out what it took to get to the playoffs, and then Kyrie came back and was like, no, I know what it takes, so I will show you. Right. And Kyrie, I think, needs to learn that part of the game, how to be a little bit of a better leader, and two, how to really contribute to winning, which I think Trae Young is set up better because he's a far better passer.
Without question.
But it's still a guy who's putting up numbers on an awful basketball team.
Far more willing passer, obviously, too. But
Luka, like, this is where the conversation starts because everybody looks at Trae Young and compares him to Luka. It's going to happen. Trae Young was taken the pick before. Of course.
Well, not just the pick before. They traded up to get Trae Young. And
Of course.
Or traded back to get Trae Young.
This is how the conversation is always going to go because of the trade that resulted and because of the fact that he was taken one pick before Luka Doncic. Is he the better player?
Yeah, and because Luka's a rocket ship.
Luka's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, they beat the Lakers by 14 tonight.
Both of them are putting up insane numbers. Luka's team's winning.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I mean, we just mentioned it. The Lakers had won, 10 in a row? 9 or 10 in a row, something ridiculous like that. And they just got beat tonight by 14 because Luka Doncic came into Staples and did what he does.
Luka might be approaching a point, too, where he's getting to Trae Young levels of passing the basketball.
He's a rebound shy of a triple-double tonight.
His skip passes to the corner when he's like... It looks like he's just doing it by accident, and he fires a dime to the corner.
I mean, he's special. Like, if you haven't watched Luka Doncic yet, do it. Like, I don't know why you haven't, but if you haven't, do it because the kid every night is going to do something crazy.
He's averaging 30, 10, and 10 for God's sake.
He had 27, 9, and 10 tonight.
Like if
he took 23 shots and he turned it over 7 times, but they won by 14.
If the season ends tonight, where does he finish in MVP voting?
Top 5 without question. Without question, top 5.
Giannis wins it, but where does he finish with the voting?
They're through 20 now, and they're 14-6. Like,
that's it. We're talking about. It might be Giannis 1 and Luka 2.
Like,
it really might.
LeBron is leading the league in assists, and the Lakers have the best record in the NBA, and he's averaging 26 or whatever it is. So yes, of course, but nobody ever votes for LeBron for MVP. So no, he's not going to win, even if he's the best player in the league, and even if he has the numbers to do it, and even if his team is the best team in the NBA. LeBron's not going to win MVP. That's how that works. Yes, Giannis is Giannis. I do think there will be a level of voter fatigue with Giannis similar to what we got with Harden the year after he won, where even though it looks like he should be the clear MVP for his second year in a row, they're just not going to give it to him 2 years because other guys are doing things that are really great, like a Luka Doncic, or like this could easily be a LeBron resurgence year, wins MVP at 35. Like, it could easily happen. I think there will be a level of voter fatigue with Giannis. But as far as Luka, right now, if I'm voting for MVP, I will give it to LeBron, and then I'm going Luka and then Giannis.
Yeah, and I'm fine with giving it to LeBron. And boy, people were right when they said LeBron would play his ass off to distance himself from the China stuff, because man, has he played his ass off.
And Anthony Davis is playing great too. Like, give him a ton of credit. But that team, as much as LeBron wants to convince everyone that they're going through Anthony Davis, they're going through LeBron. Oh, yeah. LeBron is the point guard on that team. That's
the thing we also started talking about, is what an all-NBA first team would look like.
This could be the year they just eliminate positions from that. They should have 4 years.
They might have to just take the five best players.
But if they don't eliminate positions, there has to be an ability to vote for LeBron as a guard. There has to be, because he's playing guard.
And then who becomes the forwards? Like, that's where it's.
Can you vote for Luka as a guard?
Like, if you have LeBron and Luka as guards,
where's James Harden?
Who shares James Harden then second team?
Like, at least you get a break where you know you're not going to have to put Steph on an All-NBA team this year.
And who shares forward with Giannis? You just throw it at Kawhi because, like, he's not going to play enough games.
No, he's not. You should have to play a certain amount of games for first team, and Kawhi should be excluded from. Not that he isn't Kawhi Leonard, but
he's top 5 player in the NBA.
If you were going to play 60 games or 66 games, you don't get to be first team All-NBA. Like, those guys should have to play 70-plus games.
Who would be a first team forward? That's like, where does Kemba go if LeBron and...
Kemba's lucky on third team.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if LeBron and Luka are both guards, so you're dropping Harden to second team...
Well, luckily you don't have to worry about Durant this year. You don't have to worry about Curry. You don't have to worry about Thompson, though Thompson never gets the respect on those things.
It would probably be Harden and Dame second team, right?
Dame hasn't played that many games this year. I mean, he's missed, 4 or 5 games, but they've only played 20. So technically,
if I'm projecting out.
And they aren't very good. So I would think Dame ceremoniously, yes, would be dropped to third team if he makes it at all this year. If Houston finishes like a top 2 or 3 seed in the West,
Westbrook's got to be on.
You're going to have to look at Westbrook.
Despite the fact that he's been horribly inefficient.
Not for first or second team, but at third team. I can't believe we're doing all NBA teams 20 games in. But either way.
Listen, the point is, the NBA has been
Jimmy Butler
electric
too. Like, let's look at Jimmy Butler as an all-NBA guard also, because he's been outstanding on both sides of the ball, and Miami is way better than anybody thought. They won again today. They're the 3 seed in the West. They're 15-5 in their first 20, and Jimmy Butler is doing everything for that team. Everything that Bam Adebayo isn't doing, who should also be a contender for most improved player.
How many teams are contending for a championship in the West? I think it's tough. I think it's a tough question to ask because there are 2 who are very clearly the favorites, and I'm not sure anyone. I'm not sure anyone can contend with those 2.
Yeah,
Like the Lakers and the Clippers are very clearly the favorites, and I'm not sure Denver, Dallas, Houston, Utah, maybe Houston.
Man, I was so high on Utah, and Mike Conley has just been a shell of himself.
He's been awful.
Like, just really hasn't figured out how to play next to another great guard, and that's when you realize that he's never done it before. Never has he played next to another really great guard.
If the Timberwolves get into the playoffs and it stands as it is right now, and they get Denver in the first round, do you think they can win a series? Jamal Murray sucks.
Jamal Murray is not good.
I'm ready to say Jamal Murray is not good.
I've never been more convinced that Jamal Murray is not worth $170 million. That starts next year. Do I think they could win a series? I'll say this. They've got a lot of young, interesting pieces and some good expiring contracts that come 2 weeks from now when December 15th hits. Especially with Gerson Rosas being a Daryl Morey disciple, I'm very excited to see what they do. Because they could move a lot of things around and all of a sudden be really, really spicy if they were to get a D'Angelo Russell or another really good point guard.
Ryan Saunders is doing a nice job.
I really liked Ryan Saunders.
They do kind of have assets to move if Portland wants to blow things up.
Young and good contracts.
That's where things could get really interesting. Can you imagine Damian Lillard, Andrew Wiggins, and Karl Anthony Towns?
You got to give up Wiggins. If you're going, Wiggins goes back.
But if you can get Portland to take it, Dame and Cat would be incredible. That pick and roll would be so much fun.
If you could finagle McCollum for Wiggins, Andrew Wiggins right now, I said this to you earlier.
This is the most sell high you're ever going to have on this kid.
There are 3 duos in the NBA averaging more than 25 points per game apiece. 2 of them play in Los Angeles. 1 plays in Minnesota. Andrew Wiggins is playing out of his mind basketball right now, offensively mainly, but even still,
it helps that he takes half his possessions.
He's at least trying on defense. Like, he's not a good defender, but he's exerting effort. Ryan Saunders has gotten that out of him.
Him and Jabari Parker are having resurgent seasons.
Mm-hmm. Jabari Parker's team stinks, which is normal for Jabari Parker, but
Jabari Parker's playing really well.
He's playing really well. It's the blessing in disguise that John Collins got suspended. Not really, because you'd like to have John Collins, but at least you see what you have in Parker on a 1-year deal that you can trade. Please not to the Pistons. But either way, you have a lot of teams coming up here in 2 weeks with young, interesting pieces that contenders may look at. San Antonio is losing to the Pistons right now. At what point, that is the definition of whoever loses this game, blow it up right now. Like, if you lose to the Pistons and they're down by 25 at the end of the third.
Do you see what's happening to the Jazz?
The Jazz? No. Oh, wow. Oof.
61-29. They're getting
that's a tough one.
Obliterated by the Raptors.
It's not just that you only have 29, 5 minutes to go in the second quarter. You've given up 60 with 5 minutes to go in the second quarter.
Just stat watching, Mike Conley's playing one of his better games of the season. Donovan Mitchell, 2 of 8.
Yeah. I
5 points on 8 shots, and he's a minus 33.
I'm still high on them for what they could be defensively, and I think Bojan Bogdanovic is maybe the most underrated signing of the summer. But I don't think they're a contending championship team right now. They're another team that, hey, look, I'm not saying you move Mike Conley on December 15th, but there's going to be a conversation in Utah about, this was a miss, and let's see if we can't get something else. Like, let's see if we can't find a player who fits just a little bit better next to Donovan. Because it is clear that Mike Conley was a miss to me, and I know it's only 20 games, so maybe you want to give it a bigger sample size, and you want to wait till the deadline. But there's going to be conversations about, like, is this a miss? Is this what we want going forward? Or do we look for a guy who's more like, I'm not saying this guy, but more like a Pat Bev, who's just a really great defender, who doesn't need the ball, who will sit in the corner. Pat Bev has been huge for that offense from the corner. just have that kind of guy next to a ball-dominant guard in Donovan rather than a guy who wants to run 25 pick and rolls a game in Mike Conley because it's not working.
I look to, like, so I asked you how many contenders there are in the West, and I've dropped the Jazz out. I don't think the way that they've played.
For right now, I think that's fair. I think they could get back into it, though.
If Minnesota makes a deal, and again, this requires Portland to blow it up, because since signing Carmelo Anthony, the Portland Trailblazers, you have the stats on this.
23.3 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 57.5% from the floor. 57.5% from the floor. And they're plus 56 with him on the court, 3-0. Yes, the 3 wins are against Chicago, Oklahoma City, and Chicago again. But those are NBA teams. You play who's in front of you. And he has been playing outstanding offensively in 3 games.
Thank you for saying offensively.
Yes, I obviously would stipulate that.
If they continue to win, they won't blow it up. Like they're at a point now where they're going to get to 10 wins.
They've won 3 in a row. Like they lost 4 in a row, and now they've won 3 in a row.
They will have 10 wins before they have 20 losses. That's a good thing for them.
It looks like, that's coming around.
But the trade deadline's in February. So they still might
and
blow
your luxury
things up.
tax payment is in July.
Yeah.
So
they still might blow things up. And if they do and Minnesota gets involved there, that could create a contender in the West.
I mean, you look at the team they played 2 nights ago. Oklahoma City's got Chris Paul. Somebody's going to come get him, right? Like eventually somebody's going to come get him. Minnesota could be that somebody.
Philly might be that somebody. I question it, but Philly, I'm really starting to buy into the idea that they're going to move Tobias Harris, and Chris Paul might be the guy they get back.
If I'm Oklahoma City, I don't do it for anything other than Simmons or Embiid. Like, I want one of them. And it could be Embiid, and you take Steven Adams back with him, or whatever. But if I'm not taking on Tobias Harris, if I'm Oklahoma City, I'm not doing it. Like, for what?
I wonder if Matisse Thybulle's enough.
You got to have money. Like, there's got to be money going back. Chris Paul's number is huge.
That's what I'm saying. If you move Tobias and attach Matisse Thybulle.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, for Chris Paul, if you could do it, but then you got Tobias, though.
That would be desperation for the Sixers to move off Matisse Thybulle.
It'd be desperation for Oklahoma City.
Bring on Chris Paul.
Like, the idea for Oklahoma City is to get off Chris Paul for expiring money,
right? Not
money that's there longer than Chris Paul.
See, that's the other side of things is Portland might get involved with a deal with Philly, and that's
CJ for Tobias could work.
Anyway, the point I was making with the number of contenders,
but I wouldn't do it if I got Melo.
I'm really starting to think there are more contenders in the East than there are in the West. And it might be because of the attrition where the Clippers and the Lakers are going to be in the Western Conference Finals. I'm not certain that it's going to be any 2 teams in the Eastern Conference Finals.
No, I think the East is as fluid as a playoff situation as there's been through 20 games in a long time.
I think 1 through 5 are all contenders, and the Pacers with Oladipo back might also be a contender.
Yeah, I'm cautious about that because I want to see what he is when he comes back. But Orlando is completely fallen out now with their injuries.
Yeah,
Aminu's gone for 4 weeks.
The bottom of the East is awful.
Right. Brooklyn is not going to be a good team. We know about the Pistons. We know about the Bulls. The Hornets could literally sneak into the playoffs. That's how putrid the bottom of the East is. But once you get to those 6 teams, like you mentioned them with Oladipo, look, I'm high as hell on Miami. Like, I love the way everybody loves the way Miami plays. They play hard as hell every single night.
Eric Spoelstra is my pick for Coach of the Year. If I'm picking it right now, I love Eric Spoelstra for that.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler is doing a phenomenal job leading that team. Like, really phenomenal job. Kendrick Nunn is the closet rookie of the year, and I'm pretty sure we said that week 1 of the season.
Yep.
So I hope somebody put a future on that who's listening to this. But I really, really like Miami, especially because they take threes, but they don't do it running. They take more threes than anybody in the half court.
Yep.
You get into the playoffs and they're a good, and man, is Bam Adebayo good. Bam Adebayo is one of the top 5 big men in the East. Legitimately one of the top 5 big men in the East. He does so much for them on the glass. I love that team. I really think that's an Eastern Conference Finals team if they get the right matchups in the playoffs.
I mean, the Celtics are an Eastern Conference Finals team. The Sixers are an Eastern Conference Finals team.
Don't sleep on the Raptors.
The Raptors are an Eastern Conference Finals team. And the Bucks are probably the only team that I'm confident will be in the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't know who they're going to play against, but I'm pretty sure the Bucks will beat them.
I mean, they're really, really good again, right? But it's still going to be the half-court offense thing. Like, that's still going to be there. It hasn't gone anywhere.
I do think that, like, they're benefiting right now also from having an easier point in their schedule. Not having Malcolm Brogdon's going to hurt in a 7-game series. And it might hurt really badly.
And you know what? We mentioned Miami. We mentioned Toronto. You mentioned Boston. You mentioned Philly. All of those teams. Look at Toronto even right now. Lowry's out, and they're holding it together. Miami has won games without Jimmy Butler. Boston is winning games without Gordon Hayward. Philly could sustain a Simmons, Embiid, or Horford ankle roll and still be okay.
You want to go nuts? Ewing theory? If Philly loses one of the two, Simmons or Embiid, they might actually get better with the one out.
It's right. Okay, so it's possible. But the point being, Milwaukee is an Giannis ankle turn away from a bad team.
If Giannis gets injured and misses significant time, they will lose. Like, if he misses 30 games, they're going to go 10-20.
All those
games.
other 5 teams who have at least started 14-6 in their first 20, all those other 4 teams can lose, like, have lost somebody almost. Simmons has missed time. Hayward has missed time. Lowry is missing time. Jimmy Butler missed time when his daughter was born. All those teams have proven they can win without their best player. Milwaukee is royally screwed if that guy turns an ankle.
At full health. So when Hayward comes back, if he's as good as he was when he first got hurt this year, am I out of my depth saying the Celtics are the best team in the East?
Oh no, you gotta like them as the favorite. If he comes back and they're rolling the same way he was, and Tatum continues to impress, because he has since Hayward has gone out. I'm not gonna say Tatum's an all-star, but he might be because he's in the East. But Tatum has been more impressive since Hayward went out. Like, I have been more impressed with Jason Tatum over the last few weeks than I was over the last since the playoffs when he was a rookie. So what, year and a half? But it really goes back to they have enough to beat anybody else in the East.
If Hayward is playing as well as he was before the injury, I think they're the best team in the East.
They need another big. They for sure need another big.
Robert Williams has really come on, though.
He's been good.
Really come on.
Is he
I do think
25 minutes in the playoffs?
It might even be an addition by subtraction thing where you just get Cantor the fuck off this basketball team.
But I do think you're going to need, like, the Celtics have been as good as they have been in the playoffs for the last few years because you have that big who can just stop everything and control the game for 15 seconds. And I'm not saying they need Al Horford. I'm not saying they're going to get somebody as good as an Al Horford. But there is just that theory of you need somebody who can control the paint defensively. And yes, Robert Williams can do that. I don't know if he can do it for 25 minutes a night in the playoffs, but he can do it. And you have somebody who can rim run, and you can, in a pinch, when the game is getting a little too exciting or too whatever, throw it to somebody on the block and get a bucket. And Cantor can get you a bucket every now and then, but you don't want to depend on that.
And this is the argument that Celtics fans got in with each other regarding Cantor was, well, he's just a backup big. He's only playing limited minutes. You won't really need much out of him. And yes, that's true, but like, good backup bigs are a commodity. Backup bigs who don't actively plummet your win probability are not. If you replace Cantor with Kem Birch, it's a better team.
Frank Kaminsky.
It's a better team.
There are backup bigs who affect winning in the NBA every night. Like,
if you get Mo Wagner or Davis Bertans, it's a better
that
team.
Team doesn't win a whole lot, but yes,
no,
those two guys are good
you
players.
You put them on that team,
exactly. They are
different.
But even now, like, playing every night, like, Frank Kaminsky is affecting the Suns winning.
Right. Like, you don't have to go and find
Dwight Howard.
I'm trying to think of who you don't have to have Zach Collins playing behind Yusuf Nurkic.
Right.
You can go
Yusuf
and
Nurkic playing behind Jokic.
Right. Like, you can go and get an average big, an average bench rotation big. You just need a guy who's not going to come in and be a turnstile in the restricted area.
A guy like a Kelly Olynyk that they had before.
You can walk through Enes Kanter. He will not oppose it at all.
Yeah.
I could score on Enes Kanter in the
give
paint.
me a few tries. I think I get one.
I
know he's 7 feet tall, but
he is awful defensively.
Pretty bad.
And his only really valuable skill set on a basketball court is offensive rebounding, which is not valuable. No. So, like,
they don't miss that many shots. He's not playing for the Knicks anymore where he could get 15 offensive rebounds.
You're not the Rockets where you're living off of missing long threes and having Capella there to rebound, and he doesn't even put him back up. Right. Cantor's not good enough to kick it back out. No. All he can do is go get it and then put it right back up.
I think that's the only thing they're missing is one more really good big. Not even really good. One more solid big.
All right, we're at an hour 20. That's a wrap for the week. It's a good episode. A lot to talk about. Michigan took up a lot of time. Yeah. Damn it, Harbaugh. If you just won, we wouldn't have had to rip you apart for so long. But it is what it is. That's it. See you next week.
Later.